determine those things?
Yeah, the White House's response, again, has mostly been about, at least my reading of this, is mostly been about kind of taking this away from anyone, the president or his direct family, toward, it could be anybody. They actually were asked directly at the press briefing I was at earlier this week, are you concerned about security breaches? What does this say about who can bring drugs into the White House? And
if the white substance could have been anthrax or something else. Right.
Yeah, and when they first found it, they actually did. There was a brief evacuation. I think they even evacuated some areas like around the White House on Sunday night. Because they didn't know what it was. Yeah, I think anthrax also is like a white powdery substance, right? So they said it was non-hazardous, but there hasn't been a lot of talk from the White House about that. Again, they seem to be more concerned with the idea that, this could have been, some random person.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle. I'm joined today by White House reporter Haisten Willis. Now, Haisten, we've seen white substances in the White House. A little bit unexpected. Talk about the cocaine scandal that's gripping the White House.
Yeah, this is an interesting story, and there's sort of a lot of some humor to it for sure. This was actually found, or it was
some funny lines.
Yeah, exactly. And it's called the White House. Ha ha ha. So this actually broke basically on the 4th of July, which kind of added another layer to it that it kind of broke on a holiday and everything. Right. But yeah, they found cocaine somewhere in the West Wing of the White House. One of the big questions actually though has been where exactly it was found. Because the initial report said this was found in the library of the White House. And the White House very quickly began putting out their own messages that, this is in the West Wing. And then they started saying this is in an area accessible to staff and tourists, and kind of like making it more and more of a place where obviously lots and lots of people could go.
Expanding the universe of people who potentially could have brought in the cocaine.
Yeah. Basically maximize. When you get the staff and tourists, that's pretty much everyone that could possibly be in the White House at any given time. And the reason was, of course, the speculation right away on the internet and whatnot was that, Hunter Biden, right? Hunter Biden, the president's son, has a long trouble with drugs. I think cocaine and crack cocaine specifically had confessed to using quite a lot in the past. So that was a big question, and presumably is why the White House was so busy to very quickly say, no, this is accessible to lots and lots and lots of people.
And so at the present, we really don't know very much beyond that they've tested the substance. They thought it looked like cocaine initially. Now we know it's cocaine, but we really don't know a whole lot about how it got there, whose it was, whether we'll even be able to determine those things.
Yeah, the White House's response, again, has mostly been about, at least my reading of this, is mostly been about kind of taking this away from anyone, the president or his direct family, toward, it could be anybody. They actually were asked directly at the press briefing I was at earlier this week, are you concerned about security breaches? What does this say about who can bring drugs into the White House? And
if the white substance could have been anthrax or something else. Right.
Yeah, and when they first found it, they actually did. There was a brief evacuation. I think they even evacuated some areas like around the White House on Sunday night. Because they didn't know what it was. Yeah, I think anthrax also is like a white powdery substance, right? So they said it was non-hazardous, but there hasn't been a lot of talk from the White House about that. Again, they seem to be more concerned with the idea that, this could have been, some random person. And there was actually, I guess, a leak that was to, I think it was Politico from like an anonymous source saying they probably will never know who it is. So they don't seem all that concerned. I guess we're getting to the bottom of it.
So you've written about Hunter Biden being such a big presence in the White House and around his father, who's running for re-election. Hunter Biden has legal problems, so it's an interesting strategic choice. And obviously, this whole controversy about the cocaine would have perhaps taken on a little bit less of a life if Hunter Biden wasn't milling around in the White House. What sort of is the reasoning behind why he's cutting such a large profile in his father's house?
Yeah. Well, the reasoning seems to be, no one knows, totally for sure, and Biden has not said directly, but there have been some reports out that Biden, basically Joe Biden, wants to keep his son close, to kind of keep an eye on him, to keep him safe, and that's very commendable, I guess, to the extent that part is true. Either way, Hunter has kind of gotten more and more in the headlines lately, and it seems like the more headlines Hunter Biden makes, the the more often he's seen with Joe Biden. And so anytime
Sure.
the president goes anywhere, there are tons of cameras that are there, multiple photographers. So there's all these pictures now of Biden, you know, walking to Marine One with Hunter Biden. He was at the state dinner. He watched the recent state dinner with the Prime Minister of India. He watched 4th of July fireworks from the White House balcony. So all these pictures, and again, that's what made the cocaine story a bigger story than it would have been otherwise. Hunter Biden had been at the White House on Friday. That cocaine was found on Sunday, so that led to the speculation, oh, what if it's Hunter's cocaine? Obviously,
Sure.
if Hunter Biden was not spending so much time at the White House, I think that speculation would have been lessened. So, but that's what President Biden wants to do. Again, the reports are that staffers have even kind of asked him, like, hey, is this really a good idea? And he said, hands off my family. This is a personal matter, I guess, is what I feel compelled to do, no matter what the optics are.
And so that kind of brings us to another story involving the White House, where they've been sort of they've been ruled against in a case involving their interactions with social media companies. And Hunter Biden, the Hunter Biden laptop story was a prominent example of a case where something was touted as disinformation that later turned out to really not be disinformation, but the administration has gotten a slap on the wrist for its interactions with these tech firms. Talk a little bit about where that might be headed.
Yeah, I guess it's 6 degrees of Hunter Biden. You know,
That's
Hunter
right.
Biden seems to pop up in every story, one way or the other. Yeah, and they really got more than a slap on the wrist. You're talking about the government's efforts to what they say is combat misinformation
Sure.
on social media. What the judge's ruling said is that all these top Biden administration officials, including the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, cannot interact with social media companies. They've been barred basically from talking to them, with a few exceptions for like national security and things like that. So it's a pretty heavy-handed type of ruling. Some legal scholars really are surprised how broad it is. At the same time, the judge's name, Terry Dowdy, is from Louisiana. His point was basically that this did look like a coercive collusion between the government and social media to censor speech, specifically to censor speech from a conservative standpoint. Right? You mentioned the Hunter Biden laptop.
Sure.
There were posts there that the government, I believe, wanted to be removed. That ended up being true. There was a lot of stuff. A lot of this goes back to the pandemic, COVID. There was stuff about vaccine, what they call vaccine misinformation.
Sure.
The lab leak theory, which at one time was kind of verboten and taboo and not to be talked about, and now there seems to be more evidence that probably is more likely than not. Either way, they suppressed the speech itself, the judge found, and that the White House is going to try to fight this.
But they're not going to unfriend Hunter Biden.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see.
Thank you, Haisten.
All right.
You can read Haisten and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.